Good morning and welcome to Zen Fits here in Blackstone, Virginia, the center of the world. But then you too are at the center of the world. Do you realize the title of this talk is, are you looking in the wrong place? But, okay, where do I start? Okay, let's start with an everyday experience. I like to keep my talks grounded in my everyday experience. So yesterday I got a haircut, trimmed my beard, and have a little clipper with a little clip on it that measures how deep your cut is, so I don't shave it off. So I can go like that, and it keeps it at the size I want anyway. It popped off the clipper in my office next to my computer, and I spent an hour looking for it yesterday. So I know it's there, but couldn't find it. So this happens every day. It's there. It wasn't magically snatched up by fairies or something. The clip is there, but you look in every place you think it should be, and then you look in again, and then maybe you look 2 or 3 times. Maybe you look, but you can't find it. And so my wife came in this morning, and I told her that I lost this clip, and so she, well, let me look. And so she looked and she couldn't find it. And there are a lot of, things around there where it could be hiding. And so I looked again, but I shined I was with a little flashlight, and I shined the flashlight beyond the perimeter of where we were looking. And it was way under the table, the office table, and there's a lot of stuff there. And I saw it back up, and I said, there it is. So we fished it out. So anyway, the object that was lost was beyond the perimeter of where we looked. And of course, what is the perimeter but an assumption? So I assume it's in this area. I believe it's in this area. Logically, it should be in this area. So I search that area. And it's not there. So it's kind of like I hit the assumption, the wall of the assumption, and bounce back into the assumed area. And I keep looking in that over and over again. You lose your keys. And you can't find them, but they're in the house. My mother, she lived to be 102, and she was driving when she was still up until 101. And I think when she was 100, I went over to her house, and she was all perplexed and everything. She said, I've lost the car keys, and I know they're in the house, but I can't find them, and it's driving. I'm going to have a stroke. She was always saying she was going to have a stroke. And so the next time I went over, she was okay. I said, what happened? She says, well, I just couldn't find the key, so I just gave up, and I gave it to God. She's always given everything to God. I give up, you find it. And she said, and I found myself walking down the back hallway to my bedroom. I didn't know why. I was walking into my bedroom. I opened my closet door. I put my hand in a sweater. I don't know why. And there was my keys. And I call them her poodle keys because she had a little poodle hanging on the keys. But that's a good example of looking in the wrong place over and over and over and over again, getting frustrated, getting more helpless, getting more despairing, because it's somewhere, but you cannot find it within the boundaries of our assumptions, you see. So it's the assumptions that get us all the time. The assumptions. Oh, how many times I've screwed up because of my assumptions. If you really look at assumptions, I mean, you know, with this metaphor, looking in the wrong place. There's a cartoon I posted with this. It's a guy looking under. It's a Zen story. A man's lost his car keys, and he's looking under a street lamp. So he's looking under this perimeter of light. And somebody comes along and says, "Where are you?" "Well, I'm looking for my car keys." "Well, let me help." And so the stranger helped. And he says, "Are you sure you lost them here?" And the man says, "Oh, no, I lost them over in the bushes." "Well, why are you looking here?" "Well, the light's here." Now, that's funny. It's absurd that somebody would do that. That somebody would actually look under the light knowing that the car keys weren't there, but they were over there under the bushes. So why am I looking? Well, this is where consciousness is. Consciousness is the light. So we look where consciousness is. But consciousness has a boundary. Consciousness is like a little island of light or consciousness surrounded by bushes, surrounded by unknowable. Darkness is unknowable. So the unknowable surrounds our consciousness like the ocean surrounds an island. And we live in a little island. Each of us lives in a little island of light. Consciousness that has a perimeter. And that perimeter is created by our assumptions, our beliefs, our assumptions, you see. So if you look at it this way, it's a very valuable metaphor of the man looking under the street lamp, because that's where the light is. That's where the consciousness is. He can't go under the bushes because that's unknowable. There's no light there. But these little simple stories of our everyday experience is really the same metaphor. So my mother lost her poodle keys, and she was looking within the light of her assumptions. It must be in the living room. It must be on something. Because the keys didn't run around hiding like a mouse, you see. The keys were left on something, and something would be in the house, on a shelf, on a table, on a book, on a magazine. They didn't go running and hiding from you. They're on something. And so she was looking on something. And she couldn't find it. But she was looking in her assumption that the keys were on something. So when she dropped to her, this is why she lived to be 102. When she dropped her assumption and she says, "I can't find it, I can't do it, I give it to God, I give up." She really did it. It wasn't like, "I'll give it to God and let him find it." You see, it's more or less, I quit. I dropped my assumptions. I dropped my flashlight. My flashlight's no good. My flashlight, if you ever look in a basement with a flashlight, all you can see is what's within the beam of the flashlight. So you have to look around within the perimeter of the flashlight. But no matter where the flashlight points, it's always a circle of light with a boundary of darkness. And you can't go beyond the darkness, you see. If you turn the flashlight into the darkness, well, it just moves your little assumption, a little circle of light, you see. So our little consciousness of light is like that flashlight moving around in the vast darkness of being, the vast darkness of existence that is not something, but the vast ocean of mind that is outside of our little perimeter of consciousness. So I really have to look at consciousness as kind of like a little island, you see. But my consciousness, the big assumption, the big assumption of consciousness is that the world that it sees within its little perimeter of light is the whole world. And that what I perceive with my flashlight is the whole basement. And we assume everyone else is seeing the same world that my little flashlight illuminates. It's our assumption. We just assume it. We don't question it. We're born into it. This is the assumption of our culture, the assumption of our modern world, you see. And this assumption, this modern world, if you like history, I do, goes back to the Age of Enlightenment, in the 16th century with the birth of science. Now, science replaced the science of the Middle Ages, which was alchemy. Science, the scientific method, is a method of consciousness. The scientific method creates a worldview in which everything can be made conscious through reason, through discovering the laws. It's a rational world. There are no fairies and monsters in this world. There's no demons. You see, it's rational. It's governed by laws. It's conscious. So our conscious world, the modern world in which we all live like fish in a fishbowl, is a world of consciousness assumed that what we perceive through the scientific method is the real world. It's out there. There's no other world. And I perceive it. It's just like I perceive it, you see. But each one of us has its own little flashlight of consciousness. So we get together, you see, this alone, we're terrified if you're alone. That's why not many people really practice Zen Buddhism, because you're entirely alone if you do. So we get in little groups of flashlight. We go hunting for something with a group of people at the same time. So I get into a cult, I get into a group, I get into a philosophy, I get into a religion, I get into a worldview, I get into a vision, you see, where we all have the same flashlight looking, believing that we're all looking at the same world. So we go looking for the keys as a group, which we think makes a brighter light, you see, but the group has boundaries, the group has assumptions in the same way that an individual has assumptions or boundaries, you see. So the group can be looking in the wrong place. But those in the group feel secure, you see. This is a brighter light, you see. And so we get a modern world now of a bunch of groups running around looking for that which is beyond their flashlight. We're all looking in the wrong place because of the assumption that our light of consciousness is lighting up the whole world, or will light up the whole world if we apply more reason and scientific method, or whatever. So this is the assumption of science, is that everything can be known. And then Freud came along and says, well, everything can be made conscious. So the way out of this, said Freud, is to make the unconscious conscious. See, the unconscious is beyond consciousness. It's unknowable. It's darkness, you see. So Freud, being a Victorian scientist in a way, a psychologist, you see, science of the mind, assumed, like Newton, was that everything can be made conscious, or everything can be known. So the therapy then, out of this feeling of being lost, can't find your keys to the kingdom, can't find the keys to the kingdom, is make everything conscious, which means make everything fit into your little circle of light. So the assumption that my little circle of light is the whole basement, is the whole world, remains the same. So then you get to the topic of this looking in the wrong place. So that's kind of like the story of the man looking under the street light, knowing that he had lost it in the bushes. So we know in the background of our mind, we know way, 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 way back in the background of our mind that I'm looking in the wrong place. We know that we have turned away from the vast ocean of being to our little island of light. But you see, in order to actualize that, in order to act on it, we have to let go of our sense of self and its flashlight. We have to give it up, like my mother. So I give it up. I can't do it. We have to give up the flashlight. So then she walked into the bedroom and stuck her hand in the pocket. Now, a lot of people, including her, well, God told me where it was. Thank you, Jesus. Jesus told me. Jesus is my light. Well, this is an assumption. But it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, So what was the cause of her going? Who told her to go into the closet and stick her hand in the pocket? She said, I didn't hear any voice saying, go look in the closet. No voice told her. No angel guided her. Come this way, come this way. Jesus didn't appear. God didn't speak. She just found herself going into the bedroom, and she didn't know why. I don't know why. She didn't question it. She had surrendered it. She'd given it up. So she didn't say, well, why am I going into the bedroom? She just innocently walked into the bedroom, having no idea what she was doing, sticking her hand in her sweater pocket, and there was the key. So she went outside her perimeter of her assumption of where the keys should be. She walked on faith, not faith in Jesus, not faith in God, not faith in intuition, no faith at all. Her walking was faith. Her surrender was faith. There was surrender to nothing. She just walked, not knowing why, into the bedroom and put her hand in the sweater, and there were the keys to the kingdom. Through surrender of the flashlight. Through the surrender of our belief in our assumptions. This is a very practical practice here in everyday life, because we're always losing our keys. We're always looking under the streetlight when we know, way in the back of our mind, that it's in the bushes over there. It's beyond the light. But we keep looking in the same place over and over and over again, you see. We have to, because we can't surrender our consciousness. We can't surrender our belief in consciousness, that our consciousness is lighting up the whole universe. We can't surrender our belief that my consciousness is God. We can't surrender our belief that my little flashlight is the sun. So the alchemists say our sun is in the darkness. The alchemists, the scientists of the Middle Ages, were more like poetic scientists. They were more like mystical scientists. They were more like spiritual scientists. So they were looking for the philosopher's stone, which was the light of lights. They were looking for the light of lights that was beyond the flashlight of the modern mind, you see. Anyway, thanks for dropping in and spending some time with me. I'll see you tomorrow.